So welcome everybody. My name is Nick Rose. I'm the Executive Director of Sustain, the Australian Food Network. We're a national sustainable food systems think and do network. Our mission is to design and build better food systems for the benefit of everybody in Australia. So this is the third in our transition and recovery webinar series. We've held two so far, one in June looking at the future of the fringe and the future of the fringe, particularly in Melbourne, and questions of peri-urban planning. Then in July, we looked at the question of young people and pathways to enter into agriculture. And today, we are really privileged to have representatives and leaders from three fantastic organisations speaking about diversity and resilience and community-led projects, social enterprises that are creating opportunities for refugees and migrants coming to Australia to utilise their skills and experience and capacities, find a sense of connection and belonging, and really make a fantastic contribution to their communities and to Australia. So really, really excited about today's event. So just by way of introduction, I'd like to also acknowledge that we are on the lands here in Melbourne of the Wurundjeri and Bunurong peoples of the Kulin Nation, on the unceded lands. Pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to any First Nations peoples who may be with us this morning. So as we all know, we're at a time in this first year of the second decade of the 21st century of enormous challenges and difficulties for so many members across society. And so it is a real privilege to be able to share the stories and experiences of these three wonderful organisations, Food Next Door, Green Connect and the United African Farm, and the leaders who are representing them today. As so many of the respondents to the pandemic gardening survey that Sustain and our fellow members of the United African Farm have recently coordinated, have stated, we are at a real crossroads and turning point in our individual and collective journeys, not only as individuals and members of local communities, but indeed as a country, as a global community, and in fact, as a species. So many respondents to this survey have said that the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated restrictions have provided the opportunity to slow down, to reflect, and to focus on what is really important. A great many also drew attention to the fact that the pandemic and the associated restrictions and economic recession that we're now entering has highlighted the deep and growing inequalities and unfairness of our society. The opportunity for a flourishing, sustainable and fair future for all exists, they said, but many were worried that it would slip through our grasp because of the lack of vision and leadership from our politicians and because of the continued pursuit of narrow self-interest by wealthy elites, both in Australia and internationally. So in short, if we want a better future, we have to work for it. We have to create a shared vision and strive to attain it. And that is exactly what the three organisations you'll hear from this morning are doing. So with those preliminaries, what we're going to do now is introduce each of the organisations one by one and allow them all to speak and talk about their work and what they've been able to achieve and the lessons and what they're hoping to do in the future. They'll each speak for about 15 to 20 minutes. I encourage you to use the chat function to make comments and put in questions. Georgia and Ariana will be looking at those and synthesizing them, and then after we've had the presentations for about 45 or 50 minutes, we'll have the final 20 or 30 minutes for dealing with those questions and some discussion. I also want to flag with you right now that we have just launched our next webinar. The date is the 16th of September, and that will be presenting the results of the pandemic gardening survey, looking at the experience of edible gardening in Australia during the time of the pandemic. We received over 9,000 responses to that survey nationally. Myself and my colleagues have been working hard for the last several weeks, crunching all those numbers and that data, and we'll be putting together a presentation to share that with everybody who's interested in the evening of Wednesday, the 16th of September. So we'll be sharing the link with that. So that event is now live right now. So First of all, it is my enormous pleasure to welcome Deborah, Bogenhuber and Jules Kangeta from the Food Next Door cooperative based in Mildura. Deb has over 10 years experience in community facilitation and activating volunteer organisations. Deb assisted in establishing Food Next Door and steers day-to-day operations as well as strategic aspects of the growth of the cooperative. Deb is deeply involved and active in community development and transformational change. And Jules Katanga is working for Food Next Door as project officer of the community water bank based in Mildura. This project is very important for the local community, helping small-scale farmers to get access to affordable irrigation water for their farms to produce fresh local crops, to produce vegetables at a reasonable price that is affordable and accessible by everybody. Jules has a bachelor's degree in business computing and a diploma of business from Insight Academy in Melbourne. He arrived in Mildura from Burundi in 2018 and is from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So welcome, Jules and Deb will be speaking first. Over to you.
Thanks, Nick. I will share my screen. First, I'd just like to say it's I'm a little bit overwhelmed at how many people are here, and was watching people say where they were from in the comments, and I don't know, it just feels like, you know, with all the challenges of this time, there's also this amazing opportunity, and to see so many people kind of gather and connect around growing food and making our lives better through growing food is very joyful, and yeah, it just gives us a really great sense of purpose in what we're doing. So, stop talking. Screen. So thanks, Nick, for the introduction. So I'm Deb, and together with Jules, we're here to speak on behalf of Food Next Door Co-op. We are a cooperative based in Mildura in the northwest corner of Victoria, and our mission is nurturing land, nourishing people. I'd like to acknowledge the land on which we work, the land of the First Peoples of the Millewa Mallee and the Barkindji and Aurora peoples on the New South Wales side of the river. And I'd also like to acknowledge Regional Development Victoria and the Victorian Multicultural Commission, who've provided us with funding during this establishment phase. We're quite a young co-op. We started just over 2 years ago as a co-op. So I'm just going to take you through the nuts and bolts of what we do within the time limit that we have together. And then I'll hand over to Jules to go into a bit more depth on the project that he's working on. So we really started life to solve this problem. We had two distinct problems in our community around food growing. One was that we have a huge amount of unused land, so around 20 to 25% of land in our irrigation district is no longer utilised for food growing. At the same time, we have a community of farmers here, of small-scale farmers who come from new migrant backgrounds who don't have access to land. So how we came into being was to see if there was a way that we could connect farmers without land with land without farmers. So if you can imagine that you're a new migrant farmer here, you may have very low levels of English, you probably don't have transport or you can't drive, and you don't have an understanding of the Australian land ownership system. There's a lot of anxiety around finding land to farm and wanting to find land to farm. So we had a pilot project around 4 years ago, and through that we've developed this model which keeps changing, but we're getting close to having a model that we think works really well, where we can connect landless farmers with land that's that's offered by private landholders to grow food on. So once we've gone through that process, we now have farmers who have access to land, but not necessarily access to water. Where we live, for anyone who doesn't know about our region, we are in an arid zone. We have very low annual rainfall, less than 300 millimetres a year in a good year. So having access to land is fairly useless for growing vegetables if you don't also have access to water. So then we had to come up with a way to solve this problem, and Jules will speak more about the community water bank. That's our solution, where we now have farmers who have access to land and water. They can grow vegetables, they're happy. They can share those vegetables with their families, with their communities. They can sell into their communities. And then they also have the opportunity to sell produce into other retail locations. So we run a weekly local produce box scheme called Out of the Box. And we've been connecting with some of these farmers for a while to be selling produce into the box scheme, which then provides them a fair return for their work and their beautiful food, and any profits from that go back into the co-op to start back at the top with connecting more farmers with more land. So I'll just tell you a bit about our structure. We're a cooperative, which is quite a different structure to other organisational structures in that it's owned by its members. All members have equal voting rights, equal say, and the co-op exists to be of benefit to its members. There's a mutual benefit relationship, so our members also make a contribution to the cooperative to help the cooperative thrive, which may be financial, but it may be in other ways. We are a multi-stakeholder co-op, so we have 4 different member types, and the sort of contributions they make depends on the member type. So this beautiful drawing represents how our members relate to each other and to the co-op. We have volunteer members who are represented in this picture by the worms and the microbes in the soil, so they're really essential to a healthy soil, and the volunteers are essential for a healthy co-op. And their work is often quite hidden away, they're quite invisible, but they help the co-op to thrive, and they gain benefits in different ways for themselves. The farmers are the visible part of the co-op, represented by the food growing in this picture. They are obviously essential because they grow food that we eat. And the co-op is essential to those farmers to provide them with access to land and water and other support that they might need. The consumers are represented by the bees, so they might come and go and buy produce from us. They're essential because for our model to work, we need to be able to sell produce into the community. So our consumers are the ones that buy it, and like bees in the ecosystem, bees are obviously essential to pollinating our food growing plants so that we actually have food to eat. And then the landholders here represented by the soil. They're essential for providing the land that we access to grow the food on. And they benefit from the co-op through having a connection into the community that we are involved with. A couple of the private landholders we work with talk about how much joy it gives them to be part of this system. And we use regenerative farming practices, so their soils are also being improved, and they gain those benefits on their land. The co-op is represented by the arms here. It's the thing that kind of holds us all together, provides the policies and procedures and insurances that we need for the whole system to be able to thrive. And the model is represented by a box here because we very much think that this model is something that could be picked up and replicated in another community within the context of that community, where you're building a whole ecosystem around food production. So I'm going to hand over to Jules from here.
Thank you, Deb. Allow me to share my screen. Yes, my name is Jules Kangeta. I'm working at Food Next Door as project officer. I'm working at a project which called Mildura Community Water Bank. We acknowledge Deb for funding. This project is possible because of them. As you know, a few years ago, irrigation water have been reviewed at high price, from 1 to 50 megaliter to 900 by megaliter. This is a headache for the small scale farmers, and that's why Food Next Door come with the idea of the solution of setting water bank to assist small scale farmer and to secure irrigation water, especially in a dry season. As you can see on this graphic, we have two seasons, wet year and dry year. In wet season, we have more rainfall, and then the small scale farm don't need more water to water the farm, and we have more water, but we need less. But in dry season, we have less rainfall, and we need more water to water the farm, but we have less. And this is is headache for a small scale farm, because they can't afford irrigation water to water their farm and to produce crops to the community, to the family. Now, and this is why this project, this is why Food Next Door come with this project, and how this project is possible. This project is possible because the idea is to collect irrigation water, or to collect donation of water from water holder, maybe a big farmer or anyone else who can donate money, and this money will buy irrigation water, and then we'll have there is an agreement between Mildura Community Water Bank and Food Next Door, and then Food Next Door will distribute this irrigation water to Food Next Door farm members, and then they can produce they can water their farm to produce local fresh food, to supply local community, their family. Now, for the migrants, this project of Food Next Door is important for them, because when they come in Australia, they don't know English, they don't have any experience of farming in Australia, and that's why Food Next Door come together and bring up this project, and they supply we supply them with the land, as they say that when the migrants come here, they need to farm, and they have farming background, and they can't access the land. Then Food Next Door connects the migrant and the landholder, and after that, when we get this connection, the problem now is water. That's why we come with this project of Community Water Bank. Food Next Door provide the migrant or the small scale farmer with seeds, transport. Most of them, when they come here, they don't have driving license, and they can to access the farm when they need transport, and we provide them the transport, seed, equipment, and any tools that they need. Even if we provide them with translation program, because most of them they don't know English, and on training program they need the translation. And as Deb say, when the migrants grow harvest the crops, they need market, and Food Next Door connect them with the client, with the food hub, where they can sell the crops. And when if they sell the crops to food hub, like out of the box, there is a fair return to them. And for each box, they said there is $1 which return to the farmer to support them to buy them tools, equipment, and training program. And in our websites out of the box website, if we visit where people can buy food, the crops produced local here in Nigeria, and for every box there is $1 or $1 which return to support the small scale farm. And if we click on this button, we can see amount already collect which return to support the small scale farmer. Now how we'll collect this funding or is a donation. We'll launch our website, which called Medura community website. In that website, we will collect irrigation water and money, which to support the small scale farmer. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Jules and Deb, for that fantastic introduction overview of the amazing work that you're doing there in Mildura. Such a inspirational model, and so many benefits, and it's really so impressive what you've been able to achieve. And I can see some kind of like questions coming through, so we'll get to those after we've heard from Kylie at Green Connect and Thuch and Abiola from the United African Farm. And just a reminder to everyone, please type in your comments and questions in the chat function, and Georgia and Ariana will facilitate that at the end. So now it's my very great pleasure to welcome Kylie Flament from Green Connect. Kylie is the General Manager of Green Connect and the Director of community organisations Flame Tree Community Food Co-op, the Social Enterprise Council of New South Wales, and the ACT and Sustainable Illawarra. Kylie has a background in healthcare, strategy and human resources, and a passion for showing how business can be used as a force for good. After more than 2 years heading up an award-winning social enterprise that runs one of the largest urban permaculture sites in the world, Kylie has only just started trying her hand at home gardening in the last 6 months, and is loving almost every second of it. That's fantastic to hear. Warm welcome to you, Kylie, and please tell us about your work with Green Connect.
Thanks, Nick. Hi, everyone from Green Connect. We're on Dharawal country in Wollongong, New South Wales. I'm going to give a brief overview. I could talk about this stuff for hours, so please send as many questions as you want. Brief overview of the Green Connect farm. So Green Connect is a not-for-profit social enterprise. We employ young people and former refugees to do essentially environmental work. So we are based in the Illawarra, which is an area that was built on mining and manufacturing, and those are industries that are in decline. So shedding jobs, and also have created some unfortunate environmental outcomes, which we're now dealing with. And when a group of community members came together and formed what is now Green Connect, they wanted to address 3 big problems. So the big problems they wanted to tackle, and all at once, were unacceptably high levels of unemployment, particularly for young people and for former refugees. So Wollongong is the largest settlement area for former refugees in New South Wales outside of Western Sydney. So high unemployment, unacceptable, unprecedented levels of waste. So huge amounts of waste going into landfill, and luckily the collective consciousness has caught on to this, thanks in part to the War on Waste series, and there's new solutions in place, but still huge amounts of waste going to landfill, and an unsustainable food production system. Sorry, in line with our zero waste values, we have sensor lights in our meeting room, so I have to do this every couple of minutes. So tackling unemployment, waste and food systems all at once is a big undertaking, but we gave it a crack. Well, we're giving it a crack. So in 2013, we took on this site. So it's an 11-acre site at the back of Warrawong High School. And this is partway into our farm development. So this is in about 2015 that this screenshot was taken of Google Maps. It was 11 acres of wasteland, so weeds everywhere, abandoned cars, you know, there was some antisocial behaviour going on because it was just this no man's land in the middle of suburbia. And bit by bit, we've transformed that into a permaculture paradise, essentially. It's been hard slog, but piece by piece, you can see in the middle of the screen here that this was where we started our market gardens, and using regenerative agriculture practices and have turned it into a site that now grows 55 different varieties of vegetables and herbs, as well as fruit trees. And we now have animals, including pigs, chickens, goats, bees, and sheep on the farm. So this is early on, this is a couple of years in. We're using swale and mound technique, which is one of the founding techniques within permaculture to ensure that we're capturing and storing rainwater well. So the site has 2 creek lines running through it, so there's ways for water to get out, but we weren't capturing that rainwater well when it hit the site, and we're trying to use as little resources as possible and to store what we can on the site. So this is one of our food forests going in the early days. And this is one of our market gardens. So most of our staff are either former refugees or young people. And we find that those are the 2 groups with the highest unemployment in our area. And the 2 groups work really beautifully together. So these are disadvantaged young people with multiple and complex barriers to employment. So basically the people that no one's giving jobs to. So they may come with mental health challenges or violence in the home, or difficulties, learning difficulties, language and literacy issues, run-ins with the justice system, disabilities, whatever it is. The Green Connect farm and all of our sites are very much come as you are. So whatever you've got going on at home, as long as you turn up and pitch in, you're welcome here. And the young people tend to bring English language and Australian culture, and then work alongside our former refugee staff who are coming with barriers of their own, obviously language and literacy, a lot of trauma as well, sometimes mental health issues, but they bring really good hard work ethic and stories of hardship that make all of our young people and all of us realise how lucky we are. And so the 2 groups together work beautifully, and a lot of our former refugees have done subsistence farming, so they can grow just about anything, just about anywhere, and teach us so much about growing, but also about eating. So most of our food is sold in veg boxes, which I'll get to in a sec, but essentially we've learned, some of our staff would be, say, taking home sweet potato leaves, and we were going, what do you do with sweet potato leaves? And they were saying, we can't believe Australians chuck these into compost and throw them away. They're delicious. You use them just like spinach. And so our veg box customers now once a year get sweet potato leaves in the box with a story and a recipe and explaining, you know, this is edible and this is how you can use it. And so connecting our customers to the land and also to different cultures has been really beautiful. This is, sorry, another slide around our former refugee and youth staff, and learning as they go. So we also partner with Kiama Community College to deliver Cert 1 and 2 training, including Cert 2 in horticulture. And so there's formal training that backs on to the work that we do, that again is just reinforcing and growing. I guess what we're trying to do is increase people's skills and experience and confidence so that they can go on into mainstream employment. And sometimes having a certificate behind you helps, including just helping with your confidence. And we're also trying to grow the employment that we can offer, because we recognise that in an area with too few jobs, getting people job ready isn't the be all and end all. We actually need to create some of those jobs ourselves. So our young people and all of our staff work really hard. This is a young man who had all sorts of issues going on at home, but he was really committed to the work that he was doing. So we pay all of our staff award wages. This was a shot at about 6 a.m. because in order to pick really good leafy greens, you need to get to them before the sun does. So on Veg Box Day, we go and harvest all of our leafy greens before the sun comes up, and in summer that's pretty early. So the model that we chose was community supported agriculture. When we started out in 2013, we just had a handful of customers and we're saying, look, you know, invest in us, we'll give you a share of whatever we grow. And we've continued with the Veg Box model. We're now up to 200 boxes a week are going out to local families. And we also do some orders for cafes and restaurants and caterers. And the model is, there's pros and cons. So for us, it's great because, you know, if the broccoli hasn't really come to fruition because of the weather, then we're not putting broccoli in the boxes this week. And that's not a problem because the customers don't know what they're getting until 2 days beforehand. So we can really adapt to what's growing well, and yeah, it means every week we've got boxes going out full of fruit and veg. The downside to this is not everyone likes everything. People prefer to choose their own. It's kind of like having a MasterChef mystery box arrive on your doorstep every week, and that's something that some people embrace and love and, you know, can't get enough of. But for most people, they're used to, you know, on a Sunday evening sitting down and going, what am I going to cook for the week? This is what I feel like, and shopping to what they feel like cooking. And they're used to getting tomatoes in winter, you know, all that unseasonal fruit. So there's a lot of education that goes into our boxes. So we do an insert every week with a story from the farm or an explanation of a certain veg, or you know, just a reminder of why we eat seasonally, why we grow things at certain times of the year, why we don't use any chemicals on our farm. So it's all done with organic principles. We're not organic certified because that's really expensive, and with 55 varieties plus our fruit, it just gets unwieldy. So we're chemical free. The other downside is, of course, all of the packing and organizing and logistics that goes into getting 200 boxes out each and every week on time, fully packed. And we have an exclusion system. So if customers don't say eat radishes, they can say don't put radishes in the box. So we have to pick that up and pull those out and put leeks in instead, or whatever it is that week. So it's great and it's tricky at the same time as a system. A few years ago, we opened the farm up to corporate volunteers. So this is a group from Australian Ethical who came, and that's been a really special experience for a lot of team building exercises. So they pay to come to the farm, they work alongside our staff to do something beneficial for the farm, and they get to chat to people and understand what Green Connect is all about, and what say Sume and Arma's experience in coming to Australia has been. So that's been pretty cool. We've also opened the farm up in the last year and a half to farm tours. So, you know, for the first 5 years, we were focusing on developing the land and putting in place all of those systems, and getting the staff trained and experienced. And then we had more and more demand from the public to see what we were doing, to come and experience it for themselves. And of course, this shouldn't have come as a surprise, but we weren't quite sure when we opened the farm up who would want to come in and what numbers, but kids and families has been the big winner. So kids can come and, you know, taste fennel straight from a fennel plant, or pick a carrot. I've watched children pull carrots out of the ground and just chomp into them, and their mothers are saying they never eat their vegetables at home. But there's something magical in knowing where your food comes from and experiencing that for yourself. And we also let them meet the animals and feed the animals. And we talk about the fact that some of our animals do become meat, and that's a really hard conversation for a lot of people. Normally the vegans and vegetarians have already know all of that, and it's the meat eaters that really struggle with the idea that they're looking at an animal that will become meat. And so that opens up conversations about ethical eating. What is it? What's okay and what's not? And where do you find out more information? And that's been another kind of great side benefit and community connection with what we do. I just wanted to let you know that the farm sits within Green Connect as a whole. So Green Connect has 4 different business units, and that allows us to create employment in different industries and in different settings that suits each young person or former refugee. So on the right, our farm. We also have an op shop. We work in zero waste, so we go to big music festivals and manage the waste there to compost and recycle as much as possible. And we work in staffing or labour hire. So it's a journey. Our staff tend to start with us at the farm, where it's a safe and welcoming environment. And normally, other than farm tours, there's no customers. There's much less pressure. It's a beautiful space to be, just to be. Like, I don't know, my heart rate drops a little every time I walk onto the farm, I think, because, you know, being outside and connecting with nature is really important. And also there's so many different things that people can do that if they're really good at something, they'll find that. For a lot of our young people, we've found that those that don't want to talk to us yet about what's going on for them in their lives and difficulties, they'll go and talk to the pigs or the chickens. So our staff tend to start at the farm. When they show us that they can turn up and pitch in, we'll offer them paid work either at the farm or in our op shop or in our zero waste team. And then when we can see that they can work safely, work within a team, follow instructions, that they turn up in the right personal protective equipment, all of the work ready skills, then we'll move them into our labour hire team. And then they're going out to other people's sites, local businesses that engage us to do work for them. And it might be litter picking or working in the local composting facility or planting trees, or at the moment we're doing a big lake cleanup today for the local council because it's been really windy here. So that's introducing our staff to other industries and businesses and opportunities as well. So there's sort of a way that they move through Green Connect, and sometimes they find their place in one of our business units and sometimes they move on to other employers. In terms of our scale, so last year we employed 144 former refugees and young people. We kept just over 100 tonnes of waste out of landfill through our zero waste and op shop business units, and we grew and distributed over 35 tonnes of fair food from the farm. That's it. I look forward to questions at the end.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Kylie. Yeah, lots of questions and comments and feedback, and people are just super impressed and inspired by what you and your team have been able to achieve at Green Connect. Really, yeah, fantastic work, and thanks so much for sharing it with us this morning. So now I'd like to introduce Abiola, Ajetomobi and Thuch Ajak of the United African Farm, and it's been a great privilege and pleasure for me personally to get to know them both and to work with them and support them in our role as the backbone organisation in the Cardinia Food Circles project, and the inspiring work that they have been able to do over the last 12 to 18 months with the very diverse and growing African community in Pakenham and Cardinia Shire. So I'll introduce each of them, and then Thuch is going to speak first, and then Abiola. So Thuch Ajak is the project coordinator for the United African Farm. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture, majoring in crop protection. Before migrating to Australia in 2015, Thuch was working as head of the Plant Protection Department in the South Sudanese Ministry of Agriculture, and also running an agricultural business which was delivering training, farm input and farm inputs amongst other activities. Since being in Australia since 2015, Thuch has been seeking work in the agricultural farming sector. However, as yet has not found opportunities within that mainstream sector. However, with his passion for farming, he volunteered at Ceres in 2018 at the propagation nursery section. And through that volunteer experience, he connected to Farmer Incubator, met a wonderful woman, I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about, Mama Queer. And this relationship led to the formation of the United African Farm, initially in Longwarry in 2019. Thuch is currently working at Cardinia Shire Council as South Sudanese Liaison Officer. Abiola is a committee member of the United African Farm and also the Key Liaison Officer. She serves her local community in various governance and community development capacities. Abiola is passionate about uniting the African community who call Australia home and ensuring they and their generations are active contributors to Australian society and community and economy. Abiola's passion for community development and cohesion of the African community drew her interest to the farm project, and she has since used her professional and cultural knowledge to influence the strategic direction of the United African Farm. Abiola is currently employed by the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre as the Director of the Innovation Hub, where she oversees a suite of programs and services that foster people seeking asylum into thriving journeys in Australia. So a very warm welcome to Abiola and Thuch, and I'll hand over to you now, Thuch.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. My name is Thuch Ajak, as you've heard from Dr. Nick. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land whom we are meeting on today, and pay my respect to the elders, past, present, and the emerging. To take you back about the African farm, you know, we have these two proverbs in Africa that says we desire to banquet two things to our children. The first one is the root, and the other one is the wing. So I took it from South Sudanese proverbs. So, and this was the basis of starting the United African Farm. So as you all know that there is no culture without agriculture. So we try to, as we come to this new country, we try also to come with the element of our culture and also pass it on to our children. So when the United African Farm started, as mentioned by Dr. Nick, personally, I started agriculture for 5 years back in my country. So when I came to this country, it was a bit hard to find a job in agricultural sector in the position that I really desire, because sometimes most, like any other migrant that come to this country, they always lack the Australian qualification. So I came to this country in 2015. Yeah, and then been looking forward to working in the sector, but it never happened. So not until I volunteered with Ceres, and from there, we met with Mama Queer, and from meeting Mama Queer, a wonderful lady that I will show you later. This is a picture of a happy people during the Harvest Festival, our first Harvest Festival, and I will tell you more about the United African Farm. So as the migrant will come to this country, there's a lot of things that they desire to get. There's a lot of things that they lost. So and one of the things is the food. You know, like back in Africa, we have, yeah, like in the South Sudanese culture, most of our food, we eat okra, and that also in other part of Africa, they also like okra. And I think some of the audience who are here now might have come across okra, or might have eaten okra, who might have desired to get okra. And through okra, it's what made me connect Mama Queer through a workshop that was conducted by Farmers Incubator. I was volunteering and did a tryout of growing okra, and this was at Jules Market Garden. in series. That's when I did my first trial. And when we met with Mama Kuya, she told me about how she came to this country, and for the past 10 years, she has been looking for a land, just a garden, something that she can grow the food that she missed. So, and she started conversation with Sustain through Max from Cardinia Food Movement. And from there, Max and Sustain introduced her to one of the wonderful ladies, Vicky Jones, in Longwari. And from that conversation came the formation of the United African Farm. As you can all see, this was the first day that we went to the land, and that's in Longwari. So we've seen happy faces of people who really wanted to go back to what they used to do and also feel connected to the land. I will show you a bit of a video before I continue more. This is the video about the farm, and also you learn about Mama Kuya. So,
sorry to interrupt, but does anybody else have sound on that video?
is
No.
it clear?
We don't have any
No.
on Thuch, I'm afraid.
No sound? And how do I do that?
In the sharing settings, there might be something, when you go to share your screen, I think at the bottom there's an option that says share computer sound. If you look, yeah, when you're doing the share screen,
Okay,
yeah,
come out from here.
yeah, you'll see an option to share computer sound. That'll be there.
Okay, let me share again. Share. Now I can't find, I don't know, maybe I'll continue and then maybe we can drop it later in the chat, and then maybe the rest can see it.
Absolutely, I can send the link out to everyone by email too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so yeah, so that video will tell you more about how the community embraced the community agriculture. So the basis of foundation of the United African Farm was to connect all the communities together. And African Farm is comprising of 10 different African countries. So we have countries from the west part of Africa. We have countries from the eastern part of Africa. So we have over 80 members coming from all these variety of cultures. And as you may be aware that in most of these African countries, they have lots of cultures and a lot of languages. For example, in South Sudan, where I come from, South Sudan is comprised of 64 tribes with 64 different languages and different cultures. But bringing all these 10 African cultures together, it's really of a great effort, and we tend to learn from each other. I tend to learn from Abiola, tend also to learn from Mama Kuya. Abiola come from Nigeria, Mama Kuya come from Liberia, I myself come from South Sudan, and that's the variety that we have in this. So what join us together, it's a community, and we all join together to produce some food and connect also with our youth and bridge the intergenerational and intercultural gaps that are available within the community. So that's the basis of, and as you can see in this picture, this was the second day when we came out to do some weeding and also prepare the land, and all this happened in Longwari in mid-2015. As we talked before about the element of including youth, this picture is very important to us. And as you can all see, when we come for our harvest festivals or when we do that, we normally come with an element of culture. And in this picture, that day we were doing our first harvest festival, and you will go and check most of our all what was happening that day through our Facebook page, which I'll later show you. So in this picture, we brought drums and we had kids coming all over, and most of our members, some traveled from western part of Melbourne, as far as St. Albans. I myself travel all the way from Caroline Springs and all the way to Longwari. It's a distance of 2 hours. And that really shows how passionate the people have for this community initiative to grow and this community garden to grow, and also to learn from each other, learn the crop that we grow, learn from the cultures that we have, and also open opportunities up for the young people. As you all know, in every community, there are those young people who were born in this country. Some of them, they don't even know whether, they only know that tomatoes can be found in Woolworth, but before it goes to Woolworth or it goes to other food store, there was somewhere that it was grown. And so we're trying to impact that knowledge to our people, and the traditional knowledge of having, of the elders that were also farming back home before they could come here. And that's another thing that our generation is really missing, because when we talk about organic farming in most of the African countries and over before, they used to do farming. But how did they go about it with the pests, with the diseases, with the rest of the things? And that knowledge is what we want really to gain from our people. And by connecting both the generation, the elderly generations and the younger generation, there is that element of knowledge and knowledge transfer. And that's what we want to cultivate within the United African Farm. So, and this also how you see the youth were also engaged in also food production. So by having us, the elders, and also the youth, we form a kind of a community which identified themselves by what really brought them together, but not the cultures or the educations or whatever differences that they have. So, and this was one of our working groups whereby we had community members coming over to the United African Farm to help us out. So during the time that we were tilling the land and having this farm, we have managed to host a series of working bees, and also did 2 harvest festivals. So we normally have members of the community coming together. We have local members from Baobao Show Chai Council. We have also interaction with other community members that are within, and they could come to our farm. No matter the distance, no matter how far the farm was, people will still find it their time and drive all the way. And we are really very appreciative. And through this community and through all these efforts led to the success of the United African Farm Initiative. So this was one of the harvest festival. And whenever I see this picture, it reminds me of home, of being in Africa. And wait. Sorry. Yeah, so this picture reminds us much and everybody about, you know, that's how things are, and this is how our ladies would go to the farm, do the farmers harvest, they go back to their families, and it really captures an element of culture which is inbred into the foundation of the United African Farm. So our mission is to build a community through education, food accessibility, and being a model to grow African crops using sustainable agricultural techniques. Our focus is to connect people to the land in Cardinia Shire and to the continent from where we come, to celebrate the success of harvest and to ensure the sustainability of the program and the initiative over the longer time. We are looking forward to building a model, and that model can be adopted and can be used by other African or other migrant communities wherever they are. So a model of having a community and of having a community with all the differences they have, with all the cultures they have, with everything, coming up with initiative whereby they can grow their own food and also interact among themselves. That's the model that we are trying to have, and also give opportunities to the young people and to the elderly. Like myself, there are people like myself who are in the community. They couldn't get into the agricultural jobs, yet they are passionate, and they've been doing those kind of jobs back before they came here. And when most, like any other migrants, when they come here, this qualification that you have back home, sometimes they're not relevant here. They will tell you to go back through Australian system. They'll tell you to do that and do that and do that. At the end of the day, you find yourself like you have a year or two and you haven't done what you really wanted to grow on, or what you want really to do. And then what you find, most of the people that go to become taxi drivers, most of people do other jobs, at least to make the ends meet. So with the United African Farm, we tend to attract and also give opportunities to such people so that they can flourish and also connect with the people and connect with the land which they are in, and also foster a kind of a sense of belonging, because most of the migrants, the first 5 years are kind of hard. But if there are people there who will show you and give you the sense of belonging to this country, you will definitely work hard to make sure that you grow your vision, you work hard and do whatever is required of you to build this country. As we all know, we share it, and we share the opportunity of being in this great country. And that's what also we are trying to cultivate in the United African Farm. The video I'll show you now, it's a link from Facebook page, but so since there's no sound, I think we'll just watch it as play. And this is a video from the United African Farm during one of our farm festival. And as you can all see, we kind of infused all the culture element of it and the agriculture element of it. And as I said before, that there's no culture without agriculture. So we're trying to bring both together and try to develop one bigger model whereby we can all prosper in that. Our long-term vision is to develop an outreach program for the youth and the elderly to combat social isolation and alienation, to build a unified community that empowers and supports her members regardless of their background, ethnicity, or education. We are also aimed to bridge the intergenerational and intercultural gaps and harness social cohesion within the community and outside. And we're also looking to create jobs, trainings, and support for the new migrant to the area. So for more information, you can check on our Facebook page, the United African Farm, and that's my contacts that you can reach out. And before I've been talking about the past 10 is because that currently the United African Farm doesn't have a farm which is running, and we are looking forward to getting a land which is close to our people. And if we can get a connections to get a land within the Cardinia Shire Council, or within the Cardinia Shire, where most of our members come from, because we only have few people that come all the way from West. So if we can get a land, and then we can build this initiative and include a lot of people and develop a model that can be replicated. So today I'm with my colleague, Abiola Ajetomobi. She will share some of this info and also talk more about the way forward of the United African Farm. And thank you.
Thanks very much, Thuch. So Abiola, would you like to share with us your experience for a few minutes?
Thank you so much. I'll be very brief. I know we're running out of time and we want to leave time for questions. But just to put things into context, what Thuch has just presented to you is a 6 months of work. Imagine if we have a land to go past the 6 months and beyond. So in that 6 months, we were able to grow culturally appropriate food and distribute it to our community, and also invite the other communities to come to the land to harvest with them and with their children, and also make a donation towards the farm. In that 6 months, we had 2 harvest sessions, and those 2 harvests contributed about $800 of donation from people just picking what they want in the farm and making a contribution for what they think it's worth or can afford. And also in that time, we grew very extensive partnership, and we secured grants of, I think, between 30 and 40,000. So this is just to show the power of capacity building and inclusion when communities are supported to manage and facilitate their own community development activities and initiatives. I think what I will probably like to touch on very quickly as well is how this relates to the topic of today, particularly looking at how peri-urban farming or social farming can contribute towards or enhance our diversity, resilience, and social inclusion. And a couple of things that we've been doing in the farm that I probably like to mention very quickly. One is identifying our stakeholders. So we've been doing a lot of work around mapping who our stakeholders are and how they can contribute to the viability of the farm. We also, in the midst or in the process of doing that, identify quite a few cultural issues and also cultural challenges that we've been able to work through at the time. So really understanding the power of relationship and understanding the power and influence that each stakeholder or people that are part of this relationship brings in, and ensuring that people that are designed or that projects or programs such as United African Farm is designed to support are having the level of influence and participation in decision-making and discussion so that they can actually be their own driver of their own initiative and not the other way around. I think another thing that we've been doing as well is improving our community visibility, using this farm and this project as an opportunity to not only bring together the African communities within Cardinia Shire and beyond, but also use that to really interact with different sector, different policymakers, different organizations, and see how we can both work together or collaborative, have some collaborative initiatives that supports our community in the long term and address some of the systemic issues that we might be facing now. Also, communication has been one of the most effective tools that we've had. And this is all thanks to Sustain and other partners that have helped us to bring our project out there and create the level of attraction and media and creation of alliances that really foster our journey this far. Like Thuch mentioned, we don't have a farm at this time because the 6 months project was tied to the Pick My Project initiative that Sustain was doing at the time, and that has now been wrapping up. But we're working quite extensively to not only identify a farm, but really find a place that we can call home and our community can come together. In that 6 months between September and now, what we've spent our time doing is really making sure that we cement our structure. Looking at, we became an incorporated association. We established a clear vision and a mission and a membership system. And that is seen about 80 people already becoming a formal member of the United African Farm. And we continue in the pursuit of identifying our farmland. We're working with our local council and some community members in being able to achieve that as well. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Abiola and Thuch, and thanks again to Kylie and Deb and Jules. I think what we've heard in the last hour is really inspiring stories of community capacity building and people taking charge of their own destiny, as Abiola was just saying, and really embracing a future for a inclusive and participatory and fairer food system. The idea of food sovereignty, I guess, as a more democratic and inclusive food system that is really about working our land sustainably, growing healthy food that's accessible to everybody, and achieving fair outcomes. And I think that's so important and so vital at this time. I know there's been a lot of comments and questions in the chat as we've been going forward, so I'm going to hand over to George and Ariana now to share some of those with everybody and for the panelists to respond.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Nick, and thank you to everyone for sharing so much today. I know my mind is already blown, so thank you very much. I think I'll just sort of start at the top and try and group the questions together as best we can. So initially we had a few questions for Deb, but I think that could be extended to everyone around, I guess, the models that you guys have selected. Expanding on the multi-stakeholder co-op model for you, Deb, but more generally, how did you select these models? Do you think there are, differences if you're working in a regional peri-urban area as opposed to an urban area and wanting to include home food producers, backyard gardeners, as well as sort of more traditional farm plots? I might throw to you first, Deb, and then if anybody else has something to add on that topic, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Georgia, and thanks for the questions. We actually started as an incorporated association. And over the course of probably the first year, we learnt quite a lot about cooperatives through being involved in the Farming Together program, which was a federal government program that was trying to encourage collaborative and cooperative forms of farming. And the more we became involved in that and learnt about cooperatives, the more we sort of, it was really resonating with us. I think the idea that, so cooperatives are based on a set of international principles that guide how you're supposed to operate. And, you know, one of those is member education. That was something that was really important for us because we were working with people from very different cultural backgrounds, and we were trying to work cohesively. The importance of continuous communication and understanding is something that's really fundamental in how a cooperative operates. So yeah, we actually made the decision to go through a whole change of legal structure and all the administrative stuff behind that, because we felt like the cooperative structure was really important. In terms of the multi-stakeholder, it's complex, it's challenging because you need to educate 4 different types of members, and the way you do that is very different. But I think we felt like we needed to include everyone because they were saying that they wanted to be included. So we have on our board, we have at least 1 director from each different member type. Yeah, so we're really building a whole system up here in Mildura, and it's probably quite different to an urban setting because we don't have other organisations here who are doing any elements within that system. So we kind of had to do the whole thing. If we didn't have to do the whole thing, it would be a lot easier. And we could probably focus more on, you know, either the farming or the selling the boxes. But that, you know, that's the nature of where we are and where we live.
Thank you, Deb. Kylie, did you have anything you wanted to add about structure?
Legal structure, we started as an incorporated association as well, and then moved to a company limited by guarantee. We actually demerged. We started under a refugee project, then we joined a community centre, and we outgrew the community centre and needed a more professional board, and so we demerged and merged with a larger not-for-profit organisation that was just going Australia-wide, so they changed to a company limited by guarantee. And I have to say, being part of something bigger has been amazing because, you know, so we're one of 4 social enterprises, and we can share learnings and expertise with Soft Landing Mattress Recycling and Resource Recovery Australia and Helping Hands up in Tuncurry, and that's been really good. So I think there's an importance of having people around you, even if it's digitally, that are in the same space and you can have peer mentoring conversations with. In terms of our model, I do need to add, and I almost jumped in at the end because I think it's a really important thing to say. 7 years in, our farm makes a loss. So people often look at Green Connect and go, oh my God, it's amazing. Let's put a Green Connect in every city. And I would love to, but we need to figure out how to fund that because people are not willing to pay the prices that are needed to pay our staff fairly. On top of that, it's a very hilly site, and so there's a lot of time spent moving from one side to the other. But our other business units contribute to helping the farm sustain itself because we believe so much in the value of having a community space that is come as you are, and it's safe and welcoming and multicultural and all of that. So I don't think that we've cracked the model. I don't think there is any one perfect model. I think you try something and you build on that and you switch and change and you get grants and philanthropy behind you to try something else. Yeah, certainly having a diverse range of activities that's really helped. So one of the things when I came into the role 2.5 years ago, we only had 3 business units and it was pretty shaky. And I was saying if something happens to one of those business units, the whole thing falls over. So we need to add a 4th to just have a lower risk profile. And sure enough, with COVID, zero waste is not happening. There are no big music festivals happening. That whole business unit is on hold. But we have the op shop and we're hoping to open a second in the next 12 months. So yeah, having it makes it complex, but it also manages risk a bit better. I hope that helps.
Absolutely, and we will come back to that question of funding and making money.
Yeah.
It's one that a few people ask in a few different ways. But yeah, just going to Thuch and Abiola as well. To begin with, 80 members at the moment for you is like such an amazing achievement. So congratulations. And I guess, you know, just following on from that, you know, is there a growth strategy for those members? Are there other revenue streams that you're looking to investigate?
Yeah, I think I probably will pick that. And for us, we investigated a lot of model. So Thuch and Mamakoya went to Mandura to see Food Next Door, which was really helpful. We work on a consensus model, which really enables our community, regardless of their education, intelligence, or background, to really contribute. We had a voting system, and our membership, we had 3 models that we were comparing, and people voted for a 3-tier membership system, which is 1, individuals from African backgrounds who are wanting to contribute to the United African Farm and be part of the cohesive community. Another one was an affiliated membership. So they wanted people that are non-African community, but are interested in the United African Farm to be able to contribute as well. And the third one was honorary membership, which is really looking at wanting to give people that are making significant contribution to the farm, whether it's through funding or access to land, to have the same level of discussion and decision-making capacity within and the future of the farm. So that's the model that we have now. I think our membership grew organically because people were just interested to come along. Africa is known for farming. It's one of the things that most of us have lived all our lives doing, and healthy eating and food sovereignty is one of the things that we have all been part of because we've been growing our own food and eating it. And food sovereignty, because of just the large share of poverty, has enabled people to be able to manage food better and be able to utilize food better. So that's been the model that we've operated on.
Yeah, maybe Abiola have covered a lot, and as you all know that once there's an interest, there's interest always that attract people together, and the interest that brought us together majorly was first to grow the cultural appropriate food. So when we started for those six months, it was all about interest and all what we want together. So it was a community-based and a community-led initiative whereby the decisions were made collectively. So as Abiola said before, we have explored some of the models, and we are in a connections also with some of other existing entities like Green Connect, like Food Next Door, to also look at their model and see, because what we value much is the community. So it's something that a community can grow in it and feel the sense of belonging and sense of ownership of that initiative.
Thank you. So yeah, I guess let's go to that question about funding, because I know it's something, and I can see Nicole Foster here in the crew today from the Melbourne Food Hub, who's managed our Grow Source Eat fruit and veg box program, and totally agree with what you said before, Kylie. It is really tricky to make that break even, turn a profit. So I guess the first question on that was from Farm at Ford, from Emma. I've realised the biggest cost is wages, which is very worthwhile, but how have you been able to secure the funds to provide reliable wages throughout the year? And the other sort of part to that question from Megan was, how do we make sure that microfarmers get a fair wage, in a similar vein there? Whoever wants to start is welcome to.
I'll give it a crack. We've relied on grants and philanthropy for about 20% of our funding for the last 6 years. So that's across the business, even with cross-subsidising the farm from other parts of the business. And a lot of that is the 20% gap that we can't seem to close is a productivity gap. So we are hiring people that need the jobs most, not the people that are necessarily the best ones for the job. And so there's a gap in the productivity. And also support costs. So, you know, on any given day, we might have someone turn up at work who intends to self-harm, or who has self-harmed, or who has been kicked out of home, or who's in trouble with the police. It's not an easy journey, or, you know, who's having trouble with their landlord, or, you know, a lot of our staff are working multiple jobs and they have issues with other employers and are really getting a raw deal. So there's a lot of support costs in it as well. I think we've really stood our ground on price in the last 2 or 3 years, and I had a great mentoring conversation with I don't even know, but basically he's like Australia's expert on pricing. That's what he does. And he said, if you don't get a few customers saying your product is too expensive, then you've priced it too low. So we communicate a lot about why we grow food without chemicals, why we pay our staff fair wages, why it's important to grow local, shop locally, why it's important to eat seasonally. And there's some people that get on board with that and will pay. Yes, we are more expensive than Woolworths. And interestingly, when we've done price comparisons, we're more expensive than Woolworths, so your conventional, I'm talking like chemically farmed food, but we're less expensive than doorstep organics, for example. So communicating and just standing our ground and going, no, this is the price that we need to charge to not make too much of a loss. And come and see it for yourself. Come and see how it works. Come and meet our beautiful staff. Come and see the, veggies growing here. Come and see the butterflies and the bees and the birds, and talk to us about how we keep fruit fly off our cherry tomatoes. Come and engage with what fair food looks like. And we talk about fair food as being good for the people that grow it because they earn fair wages and have a meaningful job. Good for the people who eat it because it's healthy and chemical free, and good for the planet because we're not polluting and we have low food miles.
That's incredibly valuable information, Kylie. Thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to say something briefly on this question, because I've got an opinion about it, which is this, that as a society, there's certain types of kind of roles and careers and professions and activities that we value, and others that we value less. And we value people working in the health sector, in health promotion, in mental health, and particularly at this time, I think there's been announcements of from the Victorian government because of COVID, large increases in funding for mental health frontline support services because of the challenges that the situation is placing. However, I think the kind of work that we've heard about today from all of you, for me, it's work that needs to be valued as a society, and I mean that in a tangible way through being recognised as providing a public service and having funding that's allocated to make sure that initiatives and organisations like these are not struggling and don't have to operate in a purely market context where you have to compete with the major retailers with all the the billions of dollars of marketing and logistics and supply chains that they have. For me, it's about revaluing food, valuing really socially meaningful, important work properly, and having that conversation and talking about what our priorities are as a society and a culture, and what is important, and where we should be allocating the money that we all collectively contribute through taxation, and how that should be spent. That's my 2 cents on that.
I do just want to add, and I completely agree, Nick, thank you. From a practical point of view, when Green Connect first started, when the farm first started, there were a lot of volunteer hours, and we made it a priority to pay people as soon as we could. But we've also taken a stand as a management team and said we're capping out at 30 hours a week, and we get paid a decent wage but not high wages, and we do that knowing that I put in more than a full-time week's worth of work. But as I say to my husband, if I were working for some nasty corporate, I'd want to volunteer on the side to make myself feel better. So it's just working and volunteering for the same organisation, but kind of having that fair share approach to it, where it's pay our permanent staff what they need to live well, and but knowing that you come into Green Connect knowing you're not going to earn megabucks, and that I'm being paid 30 hours so that the remaining 8 hours can go towards another staff member at the farm or whatever it might be. So sort of that's how we've done it. Whether that's the best possible model, I don't know, but if people are looking for ideas of how do you get paid staff in the door, I think it's sharing those wages around as best you can, and making a stand on price.
Sorry, Jamit. Also with the United African Farm, as you've heard before, it was just a 6-month kind of initiative. It was just during the Pick My project. So most of our funding came from philanthropies and some of the funding bodies. And we managed in those 6 months to employ 2 people that were working 4 hours a week. We know it was just was really less for a 1 acre of a land, but because it's a community-based model, so we normally organize the working bees, and also some of the organize also festivals. Some of the funding goes to those festivals and to those working bees. As we were still developing and also trying to come up with a good model for the United African Farm, and then also for us to see whether the crops that we are farming, because all what we were getting, the farm produce, were all going to the members. And it's another thing that we're also giving to the members for their time, because we know driving all the way from the western suburb all the way to Longwore, it's costly on fuel, on time, on everything. So yeah, that's how we were basing ours on. With those positions that were created, and also with the income that were generated from the farms, and of course it was just only 6 months because we were growing and our message was going out, and most of the people from western suburbs were also putting in their orders, and a lot of people were really loving the initiative because we were aiming at growing the culturally appropriate food, those crops that you can get at Woolworth. When you go to Woolworth, you can get them. But once we grow them and also engage the community, and then we can develop that social enterprise aspect of it. And then that's another thing whereby we can evaluate which one goes to where and which one goes to where. And because it's just a community community collective initiative. So that's how we were doing it in the United African Farm, but it was just on that period. So we're looking forward into exploring other ways of ensuring that we have permanent staff. We also have a land, because currently we do not have a land. We do not have a place that if someone called me today, I cannot direct them to a certain farm and say, can you go here, you will find our members, because currently we do not have. But once we have a well-functioning farm, and then that's when we will determine that how many people will we employ and what are the incomes that really comes in. But that is the state whereby we are now as the United African Farm.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if Jules or Deb from Food Next Door has something to add on this topic.
Yeah, I can say that we're still very young. We have 3 years of funding from Regional Development Victoria, so we're into our 2nd year now. Our out-of-the-box local produce box scheme that Jules talked about a bit is sort of runs itself and employs 1 part-time person, and then any other profits go back into the co-op. Part of our challenge with the funding that we have is to find ways to generate more income streams. Kylie, I'm so impressed that you generate 80%. I've set myself a target of 50%. In I think 2 years' time or something. I don't know if we'll make that, but yeah, I mean, this sort of work is about constantly looking for sources of funding to keep you going. And it's so, I don't know, I find it so frustrating because you spend so much time looking for money to pay yourself to keep looking for money. It's kind of, you go around in circles a bit. But yeah, we have 5 part-time staff at the moment. So that's us.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think we'll just finish off with one last question. I'm conscious we're fast running out of time. So I guess I just wanted to draw together 2 themes that were sort of put to us around considering and planning for climate change within your models, but also how the diverse expertise of migrant farmers, you know, can add to the climate resilience of these projects. And also other opportunities like Kylie suggested for the United African Farm around offering cultural awareness training and that sort of thing. So I guess, yeah, using the models that we have to also, you know, create that feedback loop between all of the cultures that are brought together by this place.
Yeah, thanks, George. I just wanted to just sort of interject briefly because we're fortunate to have here with us also Dr. Olivia Dunn from Melbourne University, who, as Deb and Jules would know, was involved early on with the Food Next Door project in Mildura, and particularly from that perspective on the question of climate change and climate change adaptation and the knowledge and experience and expertise of new migrant communities in Australia. So just like to mention that, and Olivia might have something to say specifically on that point as well.
Thanks, Nick. Yes, I'll jump in, but then I'll let the panelists respond. I'm a researcher at the University of Melbourne, and about 4 years ago, I started on a research project at the University of Wollongong, which was specifically looking at migrants' contributions to the environment in Australia. It's not a question migrants are often asked, and it's not a topic often explored. And the premise behind that project was specifically to understand that, you know, we've got a quarter of Australians born overseas. What are the potential contributions they could be making in considering climate change adaptation that's needed? And what's interesting is, over the last 4 years, I've met nothing but people, including young Australians, that have it in them to grow food, a desire to grow food, and it's a range of motivations, particularly the migrants wanting to grow crops that they miss from home. So the work that organisations like Food Next Door and Green Connect and United Africa Farm are doing is actually extremely valuable in providing almost like a platform for us to see this knowledge and allow it to be revealed. At the moment, it's very hard, as you've all been talking about, for people to get into farming, and without a physical plot of land where people can demonstrate their skills, it's extremely hard for them to show the value of that. And as is revealed, as Kylie has mentioned, and Deb and I are often discussing, there's new crops that migrants bring in. We know this in Australia. Italians have established themselves as big grape growers in the Mildura region, but they started in a very similar tricky situation where people were skeptical of what knowledge that they actually had about crops, and now they've established themselves very well. So these platforms are providing very important spaces for new knowledge about crops to come out. It does need research to be able to focus on what this means for climate change adaptation, but as an example, agricultural scientists at Melbourne University have identified sweet potato as a crop that's actually better suited to drought conditions. And so we've got people in Mildura who are actually familiar with growing sweet potato or root crops like cassava. Could they start paving the way for demonstrating that that might be a viable crop to grow in Australia, as opposed to something like grapes, which are heavily dependent on irrigation? Anyway, I could wax lyrical about this for ages. I'm, like you, trying to find funding. I've got a fellowship application due today, but I really would like to work with some of these incubators and document some of these things so we can feed into government policy about the importance of supporting farming in a different way. And I couldn't agree more with Nick. We need to find a different way to fund this work, environmental and social work that everybody's doing. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Olivia.
Thanks, Olivia. Just quickly say if there's anything that you wanted in terms of links or any research that's publicly available, please send it through to me because I'd love to include it on the email I send to everyone after we wrap this up.
Sure.
Thank you. But to the question, does anybody who wants to go first?
Maybe I'll let me put on a very short kind of like when we started with the United African Farm, like I said before, that it was all about the knowledge, to get that knowledge from the elderly. And in the first phase, in the first days, we started with sweet potatoes, as mentioned it, and we were looking at trying to try out if cassava can grow here. So all what we are trying to do is that, like most of the migrants that come to this country, they don't find that chance of actually practicing or trying out the crops that they missed. And this is also like us, the more these crops are available, the more the wider Australians can get used to and get to know like how can they be cooked. And this also can help with the climate change. It's about adapting to the new normal that we are in. And Australia is quite a blessed country because we have a lot of people coming from all walks of life and all the countries all over the world. They are here. But if we advocate that all these people be given a chance, say that they can practice their knowledge, they can also have, they can feel that sense of belonging, I'm pretty sure there'll be much knowledge out there that each and every one of us will have to tap into. So, and this has been like the basis of how we started the United African Farm. So supporting this kind of initiative can really help this country prosper and can also address some of this, because there are some countries already, like there are some crops that were not growing years ago, but currently they can do well in this because of the climatic change. And once we transfer into that, you will see like the food cycle, I mean the food kind of a net, it's going to change, you know, like it has to change such that people will adapt. Otherwise, if people sticks to whatever it has to used to be, and then we will have limited things to eat even here in Australia. But once we diversify of all the crops and give everybody an equal chance and a sense of belonging, I'm pretty sure there's much that we can learn within the migrant communities. Thanks.
Thank you. Food Next Door, Green Connect, any thoughts?
What I can say, this program of Food Next Door is very important, especially for the migrant. As you know, most of Africans, they have their own food they used to. As on my own country, we used to eat what we call ugali. And we can't, for my example, for mine, I can't pass even if one day without eating ugali. This is the most important food from Africa. And then when we came here in Australia, it was very hard to find those flour to make ugali, which is called maize flour, and we have to travel maybe 500 kilometers to go to find the ugali. We have to travel to Melbourne, to Adelaide to find that. But now we start growing it here in Mildura. That is very, very good for migrant. And now the problem now is another problem is to find a milling machine. Now when we get our maize, now we have to mill it and find corn flour, and it's very hard. Now what we are looking for is to get this milling machine, because most of the migrants, they need to grow maize, beans that they used to use in Africa, and that is most wanted for migrants to find what, and they contribute and they bring it in Australia, because now some of Mildura community now they enjoy ugali. And I remember my first time in Multicultural Festival in Mildura, we demonstrated, we cook ugali, and whole community enjoying eating ugali. And now as they can enjoy getting this ugali in the region. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. I would love to eat that. Please send me a recipe if you have one. I would love to give it a try and send you a picture of how much I mucked it up. But Kylie, go ahead.
I mean, I shared some stuff about the sweet potato leaves, but I think what happens on the Green Connect farm is our former refugee staff get so excited about food and growing it and tasting it and trying different things and preparing it. And they share that passion with our young people who have normally been brought up on like chips and biscuits. And one of the first things we learned when we increased the number of young people on our farm, because it used to be almost exclusively former refugees, was they were pitching in and they were weeding and planting and harvesting, and then they would turn around and go, what is this? What's kale? What do you use kale for? How do I prepare this? And there was just such low levels of food knowledge and food preparation skills. And so then there was this sharing that happened between our former refugees and our young people. And, Sume would bring in her papaya salad. And it's just, I think as with many parts of the Western world, we have lost our connection to food. And that comes back through a lot of our migrant communities. And I think that's something special that happens on the farm, but also extends to our veg boxes and our veg box customers. So banana stem went out in some of the boxes a couple of months ago. And even I was like, whoa, what do you use this for? So that included recipes and a story from Playmay. And yeah, there's just a passion and an excitement around food that happens.
Wonderful. Thanks very much. And I think I might throw over to you now, Nick, and so you can wrap up.
Okay. So thank you, everybody, for what you shared today. It's been a really special hour and a half that we've had together. So much experience and wisdom and knowledge and culture has been shared here. And at times, as I said at the outset, that's really very difficult for so many of us. The stories of possibility and hope and positivity and empowerment are really so vital. And that was our intention with today's webinar. And I think that's absolutely been far exceeded. Really extremely grateful to Thuch, Abiola, to Kylie, Jules and Deb for everything that you've contributed and all the work that you're doing, and wish you all the very, very best in what you're doing going forward, and in our role as a sustainable and healthy food systems organisation and network. We're here to do whatever we can to support and promote and work with you to achieve those objectives, both for the benefit of your staff, your volunteers, your communities in the places that you are, but also, more broadly on an agenda of transforming Australia's food system, because I think that's absolutely what's required and the challenge that's before us. So on that note, I will conclude and just remind you that we have got our next webinar on the 16th of September, which will be sharing for the first time the results of the pandemic gardening survey, the 9,000 respondents across the country who contributed to that. Really powerful message, set of messages that all those people have delivered. Looking very much forward to sharing that with you all, and really using those findings as a springboard to advocate and campaign for better resourcing and support for the sorts of organisations like Green Connect, like the United African Farm and Food Next Door, and so many people, both in the webinar today and all around the country, who are leading the way to a better food system for us all. So thank you all very much again. The session has been recorded and we'll be making that available over the next few days, so watch out for that as well. And with that, goodbye and take care, stay safe, and look forward to hopefully seeing you with us again in September.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.